It's the sun coming up on the hillside, propane stove in a pit line. It's a swing 16 hanging over the mantle that granddaddy gave to you. It's closing that cattle gate real slow, hot hands in your pocket when you're real cold. I can tell you, but you can't know. Won't know until you go. It's the way to go, long spanks through the breeze and the trees when I'm sitting in a white oak stand. And I do it because it's in my blood, it's just a part of who I am. I find my way back to my roots every time I lace my boots. Hit the woods in the dark before the sun comes up. That's why I hunt.
Folks, in the drop zone hunting, Jeremy here, and my guest today, I say things happen for a reason, and apparently they do. So my guest today, Ron and Gary, were supposed to be my second or third show when I first started back in the winter, and the guys came down, and we laid down a hell of a show, and I went to do some editing and found out I didn't have no audio at all, so I had to give my buddy a call and say, hey, guess what? And he goes, let me guess, you forgot to hit the record button. And I said, well, not quite the record button, but we don't have no audio. But the neat thing about this is Ron and I have been friends for probably 7 years. When I first started dabbling in hunting shows and hunting things like that, I reached out to Ron. I found him on Facebook. I was intrigued with his posts he would put on Facebook and stuff about what he did. And I reached out and said, hey, Ron, why don't you come down and talk to me? And he did it just said, what time, when you want me there? So here we are about 8 years later. I've got in the studio with me today, my good friend, Ron Slifer, and his tracking partner, Gary Easley. That's what it is. Gary Easley. So guys, welcome back. 2.0.
It's good to be back. and you're right. Things happen for a reason. We discussed this, and it's a perfect timing with season coming out.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, in February, a lot of guys are, they've been through the grind. They're kind of done with hunting. They're moving on to their
grind. Yeah. They ground it out and they're tired and burnt out. And so here we are starting in about a week away.
Yeah. I was going to say, what are we, about 8 days before
8 days.
October 1st. Yeah. And they'll be slinging arrows.
Getting some welcome rain today and maybe some rain the next few days. I mean,
man, we need it.
It's
Holy
been dry.
Cow. So let's start with this. So Ron, Gary, Slifers Bloodhound Service, tracking service. Let's start right there with, what type of service do you provide, you guys?
So basically, we track wounded deer. A hunter shoots a deer, tracks a deer a little bit, loses the blood, or sometimes a deer doesn't bleed at all. We got trained bloodhounds to go out and track these deer, help the hunters out in need. It's a process of training a dog like that, but we've got a pretty established dog. Dio passed away, of course, in 2020. And his daughter, I'm sure we'll talk about her. Both of them here coming up yet, but she took over. This will be her third year. And the first 2 years have been very promising with her and Gary. She
done good.
A great replacement of Dio. But basically that's our service. We kind of stick around in Illinois, but we've been known to cross the state line before and go to Missouri, Kentucky, and Indiana. We tried to stay
downtown
local.
Chicago.
Oh, yeah, Downers Grove, Chicago was a trip, but that was a 197-inch deer, well worth the trip. And that's one thing I want to say. Big deer are great. Everybody likes a big deer, but hey, man, we'll track a doe. We'll track small deer. It's not about the size of the deer. It's just about recovering the deer.
Well, and I think that sometimes we as hunters lose sight of that the ethical part of hunting. I think we owe it to the animal. I think we owe it to nature to do our due diligence to at least give a valiant effort into recovering that animal, regardless if it's a 190-inch 12-pointer or a doe or a 4-pointer. I think we owe that to the animal to just, no blood, walk to the truck. I'll go out this evening and try again. I just don't think that as hunters that I think we owe the animal that to give it every valiant effort we have to recover that animal.
100%. Actually, I'll be putting a post on here right before season on my page, Slifers Bloodhound Service, about something that's not talked about very much, and that's ethics. And some of the things we hear, how hunters reply to us and stuff, and the things they say. But it's going to be an interesting post, and hopefully an eye opener, that guys take it to heart, because we do lose sight of it sometimes. We get consumed with getting that picture on Facebook. We want the picture of the big deer or whatever, cover the deer, and just lapse in judgments and stuff. But ethics is very crucial. It's a backbone to any hunter, really.
And it's not necessarily off topic, but I like when we get into conversations. It's so funny how social media has, because growing up myself, there was the VHS days of guys that you'd go out and you'd buy a video and you'd watch these guys do these hunts, and younger, you're thinking, wow, man, those guys are just awesome. And then as I got older, I learned how much editing went into some of that stuff, and how some of those that really wasn't how things were unfolding. And then in today's world, the YouTube guys that are doing this pretty much live as it's happening, they're recording and then posting that evening. It's changed the dynamics quite a bit in hunting, as far as in social media. People, for years, there's been, and it's probably more so some of the older guys, magnificent, great big buck hunters that you don't know about because they're old school. They don't get into that. Oh, look at me, look at this, look at that. Those are the guys that I try to find, is the ones that ain't out just blowing up, how good of hunters they are. And that I like to find the guy that you walk in and go, oh my God, you look at his wall and and you're like, holy cow. And you'd never know, you know?
So they say sometimes when you kill those big deer, it can ruin your hunting, because everybody's going to sneak in and try to, because the genetics are there or whatever. So you're going to have people horn in on you or try to steal your lease or whatever. So sometimes it's good to be low key and quiet, like you said, and be that guy.
Gary, Ron, so let's go into, so we know what you guys do. Okay. But let's go into some history on how Slifers Bloodhound come about. Let's talk about how you maybe started, Ron, and then how you incorporated Gary to start helping you. Yeah. Let's just kind of start from the beginning, and if we veer off and go, we go. But let's just kind of talk about where did Slifers Bloodhound start? How did it come about, and how we landed where we're at today?
So I was an avid bow hunter for 24 years. I don't even bow hunt anymore. I hung my bow up 12 years ago to track all the time, but I lived it. I love the bow hunt, just like a lot of you out there listening. And one year, I don't know, probably 15, 16 years ago, I shot a big deer and lost that deer. We looked for it, and just could not find that deer. And that's where it clicked in my head. I knew it was legal and on the books in Illinois at that time. A neighbor of mine, actually, he lives by me now. At the time, he didn't. Dan Hilley was tracking deer with the dog. And locally, everybody knew Dan Hilley. And so anyway, I talked to Dan a little bit and ended up getting the bloodhound, Ronnie James Dio, my first bloodhound. And I told myself, I'm going to train this dog. It's something I wanted to do. And man, what a story that was, that ride with Dio for 10 years. But
let's talk about that a little bit, Ron.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that ride with Dio, because that's how you and I met, was through Dio. So you get this pup. Yeah. And you probably don't know a damn thing about bloodhound.
I didn't even first. I love the looks of a bloodhound. I thought they were neat looking dogs, but they're a very unusual breed. Every breed's different, but they're a different breed. So I didn't know what I was getting into first off, but I just love the looks of a bloodhound. I think they're awesome. They're the breed I want. But I get this guy, this little pup, and how Dio got his name was, didn't even have a name for him when I got there to get him. It's like, what am I going to name this dog? And I'm getting out of the truck, and there's a song on the radio by Ronnie James Dio, The Last in Line, and it clicked. I said, that's it. I love that name, Dio. We're going to name him Ronnie James Dio. So he got that name, and, I never had a working dog before. I've had dogs growing up as a kid and older in life and stuff, pets and whatnot, but I'd never had that working dog, and I didn't know what I was doing. Dan Hilley helped me a little bit, and keep me in on things. But in my way of thinking, if I want to have this dog to be a tracking dog, the best dog I could have, I would probably have to quit bow hunting, because I tried that transition at first. I continued bow hunting and had Dio, but I would get a phone call here and there saying, hey, I need your help. And it's like, oh man, I'm one that just can't say no. So I'd ruin my hunt, get down and go track. So in my way of thinking at that time with Dio, first off, I just wanted a bond with that dog. I wanted a solid bond. He went everywhere with me. He'd go in my saddlebags to the gym with me when he was a puppy. Took him everywhere I could, trained him as much as I could, took him out on every track I could go on. The more he got out there, the more I got out there, the better team we'd be. And a couple of years that it paid off, you know, and that bond was so strong between us. We could sense each other. And I did that for 5-6 years, or about 5 years. And Gary ended up calling me one night, needing me. He'd shot a deer up there by Sturgeon, by where he lives at. And we went up there to help him. Gary, of course, is on the track with me. And we got to be pretty good friends through that track. And Gary, we just kept in touch. And Gary, I knew he had coyote dogs at the time. So he's pretty good. He knows dogs pretty good and stuff.
Right.
And he showed a lot of interest in this. And so we ended up hooking up together then about 5-6 years ago and become this 2-man team. And that's been a great thing. It really has been very beneficial.
So with both of yous in the dog world, you brought up a point that I'm curious to now. You know, you took this dog with you everywhere. In a working dog, do you think working dogs are always going to be working dogs, or do you truly think that the best you're going to get out of a dog is the more, like, even outside of work, the more time you guys bond or are together, do you think it just makes him do what he does better, or do you think it's just more it's easier to work with?
I think with this breed, the Bloodhound, and most other breeds, it improves the dog tremendously. Having that bond, they want to please you is what it is, you know, and it's a very, very good thing, that bond. But then I've seen dogs as well, different breeds that are just gritty. You know, the guys, don't touch my dog. You know, it's a working dog. And what those dogs do. It's kind of breed specific.
I gotcha.
But a Bloodhound in general, it really works well. If you get that bond with them, they want to go extra. They want to go above and beyond.
Is your with the dogs that you work with the same way, Gary?
Yeah, you got to get trust in them.
Yeah.
If you don't, then they won't work for you.
Really?
No, they got to trust you before.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense when you bring it up. You know, that would be just an added, layer to the,
and like I said,
relationship.
It was kind of weird growing up and hunting and stuff. I had friends that had bird dogs and stuff, and they always had that mentality: don't touch my dog. It's not a pet, it's a working dog. So, and with the Bloodhound, you can go the opposite way with that. It's the best of both worlds.
So let me ask you this. You got this dog named Dio. You're out bow hunting, a buddy calls or a guy calls, hey man, I need a little help here. Okay, I'll come help you. Dog gets out, does his thing. At what point in this journey with Dio did you think, I got something special here, man? I mean, there's something, because a lot of people say they have tracking dogs, Ron. There's a lot of people that have them, and some people have good success rates. Some people have okay. I don't know if it's the dog, if it's the trainer, maybe it's a combination of both.
So many variables.
When did you know I've got something really special here?
So it was tough at first. When I first started 12 years ago with Dio, it wasn't really, I always heard to a lot of hunters when they go out there and word kind of got out, they'd always say, is this legal? They didn't know it was legal. It just wasn't advertised. Through social media, it improved, and everybody, word got out. And I guess the thing of it is when, as far as Dio, there was a lot of times we go out and track and not find deer, but he was advancing that track tremendously, like way beyond where the hunter was. We'd find that drop of blood at 2 a.m. in the morning in the middle of a cornfield, and the last drop we saw was a quarter mile before that.
Wow.
So those non-finds, the deer's just not dead, or we might come to our property line. But I was seeing those as well as some recoveries. They were getting to be day-old recoveries, or sometimes day and a half old at his early stage. And he moved up to 2-day-old tracks, later on in life, just through that experience. But when I started seeing that, you just see that thing. But the thing of that is when you're tracking, that's the hard thing. You don't recover every deer you find. There's times we go out and we'll track and we'll do 10 to 12 tracks and not find a deer. A lot of people don't realize that. And that's part of tracking. And there's times where we're successful and we'll have dead deer. We'll have a streak of 5 or 6. Sometimes we had 9 deer that one time on one day, and we'll talk about that a little later. I'm sure. I hope we will if we get to it. But so
do you think that that percentage of finding versus not finding, even with the best dog you can have, is it Is it more? I mean, I would have to say a lot of it is on where the animal was hit. Naturally, is going to be
Shot placement.
Shot placement is going to be, and we're going to get into all that later. But as far as us as hunters, and I think we're going to get into this in tips too, but we can probably hinder that track just as much as we can help it if we're not doing the right things.
Oh, certainly. Certainly, like I said, when I first started, a lot of guys would go out there and bring their buddies in and track it all up. They'd grid search and stuff. And that's fine. I mean, but if you want a dog to come in, you're really hindering that track, as you said. You're messing it up. What you're doing inadvertently is when you're walking on the blood trail or near the blood trail, you're picking the scent up on your shoes as well, and you're spreading that scent all around. A good dog can work through that, but a younger green dog is going to have a hard time
trying to figure out what's what
and struggle, Yeah. And even a seasoned dog will struggle too, to a point, and they'll eventually maybe get through it, maybe not. So there's a point. There's just so many variables to scent. Scent's an unusual thing because you can't see it, and that's what the dogs rely upon, their nose. We use our eyes; they're all nose.
Yeah,
and that scent is so critical. It can attach to your shoes like that and lead the dog astray. So definitely that is one of the things about it. And of course, the big thing about it is that a hunter, after he shoots a deer, is the weight. We've talked about it before. And I'm going to make a post on that as well, just a reminder before season. But, think about what you're doing, hunters. You're out there, you wait the last day of season, you're waiting until the next season, so there's a long wait there. But then when season comes around, you're waiting in the tree stand for hours, sometimes days before you see that deer get that shot. But then when you get that shot, that's the most critical wait. And that's where a hunter messes up a lot of times.
Is on that wait.
Yeah. And I understand it. You've got a deer wounded and you thought you had a good shot. You get down, you start tracking, then that blood peters out, or you might jump the deer. And that's generally what happens. And the calls we get, there's a protocol. When somebody calls me, I'll ask them the details and stuff. But a lot of times we'll hear it, I'll ask them, how long did you wait till after the shot? I waited an hour and a half is generally the answer. Then they'll say, I'll ask them, did you jump the deer? And said, yeah, we did, about 150, 200 yards in. It happens a lot. So it tells me there, and the hunter learned a lesson too, hopefully, that it's better to wait. And we'll talk about those wait times again here coming up towards the end. But that's a big thing that can mess up the track, because what you've done then, you greatly increase that blood trail or the track of the deer. It may not be bleeding by that time. If usually a deer beds, they'll quit bleeding. So then there's no blood for you to follow. So that's where dogs going to come in with their nose and scent. But you've increased that blood trail. But then what if you've also pushed that deer so far that it's on somebody's property? Right. You can't go on. So very critical on the weight. That's a very critical thing. And a key thing I said to that is a dead deer goes nowhere.
Yes, sir.
And you can't dispute that fact.
So with Dio, how many years did you hunt Dio?
We had 10 years in with him. The first year and a half or 2 years, not too heavy because he was a pup, but we did go out. So we had a decade of Dio. He lived to be 10 and a half, and just a sudden death. Wouldn't have known it was going to happen. He was just healthy up to the day he passed away. We was out in the back in the goat pen. He was there with us all day, just a normal day like any other day. And just what we're assuming it was either a heart attack or an aneurysm, and he passed away. Hindsight, yeah, devastated at the time, of course. It felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. I called Gary, and Gary came down, had a few other people come over, and, we was all devastated. But hindsight, looking back, things happen for a reason. We've talked about it. Crushed, of course, but I didn't have to make that call in life, with Dio, if he was going to be 15 years old and go down the hiss and call the vet and say it's time.
Right.
I was spared that. He went in his way, but ironically, with his daughter taking over Jewel, she just fell right into place. And Gary will testify to that. She's just phenomenal.
So yep. when you guys lost Dio, as far as like a bloodhound breed, is that typical in that animal, or not really, or is that just a freak accident that happened?
So it could be me or you sitting here in the chair, aneurysm or heart attack,
right?
Just
so
like
it's
that.
not like something common in that. Some dogs are known to have bad hips or known for this or known.
Yeah.
That wasn't something that
So
was out of the ordinary per se?
not really. They say the average lifespan on a bloodhound's 10 to 12 years. What was weird to me was, as Dio, if you looked at him, anybody that saw him said, that's a 6-year-old dog. He just was so fit,
And healthy. And
the only thing I hope is, they say all dogs go to heaven. I hope I see him when I leave. I just, and that's the thing. It's like, man, I'm telling you that with that bond, you get crushed, that love. And I gave that dog a lot of life, but I didn't realize till after the fact, a lot of life he gave me.
Sure.
Well,
they almost become your children, or a brother or a son, or, like you said, you was dragging this pup in your gym bag.
So yeah.
So it's not like it was just a dog out in a pen that you
Yeah.
threw some scraps to and took him when you needed him.
So
he was part of the family.
3 daughters, and the daughters had said that before he passed, actually, at one point, said, what are we going to do when Dio passes away? I said, well, you just dig the hole big enough and I'll go with him. And I told the daughters that too. That's the son I never had. I really looked at him as a son. I really did.
I can see it.
I
mean, you probably spent more time with that dog.
Oh,
between just at home, out hunting.
Oh, and coming home every day from work, I'd see him out there and he'd be wagging his tail every day. I'd have a bad day. I'd come home, he'd be wagging his tail, make my day a lot better. It's just a gift that a good dog, any dog can, but a great dog or a good dog, you get that bond. It just makes life so much better.
So Gary, like an outsider coming in per se, not knowing that back history, when you first got to know Ron and the hunting thing, like you being a hound, or a dog person and being around dogs and then getting into this with him, what was your thoughts on that? Like being a dog person and watching this dog work, did you as well think, man, this thing is something special?
Yeah, when he come up track mine, I watched him, but it rained 2 inches that night after I shot him. But I did walk up on him. He stood up and seen me, so he was still alive. But then I told him that night, I said, if you ever need help, just let me know.
So it had rained
2 inches.
2 inches and Dio still.
So that's what a lot of hunters don't realize. Us visually, when it rains, it washes away that blood. But actually in the scent world, rain is an asset. When it's hot and dry, that's bad. Or if it's windy, it blows that scent around. But that moisture just makes it revitalizes scent, intensifies it, and makes it stick and stay.
Really?
There is a point, though, in the rainfall, if you get a deluge of 3, 4, or 5 inches that come down suddenly, it can disperse the scent somewhat or maybe wash it away. But a little bit of rain ain't bad. It really helps.
Yeah. So, the unfortunate thing had happened. Dio had went, his calling came and he had to move on. And here you're sitting with a business, one of what you do, but so throw the business out the window. I mean, here you've lost, your buddy, I mean, at that point, did you ever think, yeah, shit, what? I lost him. This has ran its course. I'm done. Or did you think I got to get back? I got to find one and get back to work.
So that was always a plan, right? Currently I have 9 bloodhounds right now. And then a litter of pups. If anybody's looking for a pup, we got some awesome little bloodhounds right now. They're available now. They just turned 8 weeks old. But in the plan, I've always had a B dog. Dio was what we called the A dog, right, Gary?
Yep.
He was the main dog, and he would perform. I mean, he knew his job. We'd go to a track. As soon as we'd done on that track, we'd load him up. He'd lay down in the back of the truck, go to sleep, and we'd go to the next one. He knew what he had to do. And so anyway, in my mind, I had to have that backup dog. Jewel was the backup dog. I had another one, Teddy. It was Dio's son, but he was poisoned, survived that, and died at 6. But he was the B dog.
Poisoned, got into something?
So somebody came and deliberately poisoned my puppies.
No way.
No, seriously. I live on a dead end road, and it happened.
Why would you think that was about?
Long story to it.
Its own, its own.
And I can't prove anything really, but I can in a way. But yeah.
So somebody come out and poison Teddy?
Yeah. So him and his sister, and my dogs are always in the pen. They're never, the only time they're out is when I'm out there. So they didn't get in anything. And we actually, Taylor, which was Teddy's sister, they was young pups. They was probably 2 or 3 months old when this happened. Well, they was a little older now. I'm sorry. They was probably 4 or 5 months, but Taylor, when she passed away, I took her and we sent her body up, sent Champaign University up there, the veterinary place up there, and they proved it. They did the blood work and whatnot. So they was actually poisoned. Somebody come to my house and poisoned my dogs when I wasn't there.
What'd they poison them with? Do you know? Did they find out?
It was antifreeze.
No shit.
Yeah. So,
wow.
You know, it came and went, bad deal. You know, a lot more to the story. I won't go into details on. No,
I respect that.
But Teddy was a B dog. So that stepped it up. When he passed away, we had Jewel. And that was kind of a weird thing, because I always liked the male dogs myself. And people ask me, what's better, a male or a female? There's inherent differences, you know. And in general, I think a female is going to be somewhat slower and methodical versus a male's a hard charger. Dio would drag us. He would just, if you fell on the ground, he'd drag you 10 feet before you got up. He was a hard charging dog. He'd pull you up and down hills like nothing. And that's kind of the funny thing. I feel like I'm an old man. I just turned 60 this year, and Gary's got a couple of years on me. But we're doing tracks for guys that are half our age. You know, we're doing multiple tracks a day, and the guys are behind us, the hunters, and they're just smoked. They're exhausted, you know. It's like we're still going, but they don't realize the dog's doing all the work for us. As long as we stay on our feet, we're going, you know. So we're getting pulled along. Jewel is a lot slower, but back to it. Yeah, Jewel was the B dog at the time when Dio passed away on July 31st of 2020. Season was right around the corner. You know, we're going into August 1st, you know, and then October 1st. So we had 2 months to get her tip top. And, so I was cramming to get her up to the A dog level. And we did that. We crammed a lot, and it preoccupied my mind, got my mind off Dio, you know, and I had a difficult time with that, being behind her, because she was a black and tan, just like Dio. And I'd be out on practice tracks calling him Dio. And even early on in the season, I would do that, make that mistake of calling him Dio. Yeah. You know, when you're behind a dog so long like that, it's hard to break that habit.
Sure, I
get
like
it. Calling your kid the wrong name. You look right at him, it's your own kid, and you call him the wrong name. It happens. But she stepped right up. And actually, the first deer she found that year in 2020 was an early season, youth season deer over in Indiana. And it was a booner deer, her first deer. And it's like, man, so it's a 2-hour drive for me to go to this track in Indiana. And I'm like nervous. I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You know, this is a green dog. I think she can do it, but I'm so nervous because I didn't know how big a deer it was. Actually, it was way bigger than what they thought it was.
Really?
But I'm driving 2 hours like, what am I doing? You know, get over there, and she finds this deer. There was no way they was going to find this deer. And it ends up being a booner. Like I said, big deer are nice. Any deer's nice to find, but those booners are special.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt. And that just told me there, man, that drive home, I was crying. It's just, I felt like Dio was right there with me. And he was. Part of him is in her.
Right.
You know, and it just, honestly, the grown man, I cried when Dio passed, you know, and I cried that day on the way home. It's like, it's a very emotional deal.
Without giving up any trade secrets, if there is any, because I don't know that world. When you say you got to get a dog, I got 2 months to get this dog A plus ready. What are some of the things you do for a dog like that? I mean, like, without giving up trade secrets, how do you get these dogs prepared to do this?
It's not really a trade secret. And a lot of the putts we sell to people that want to do this tracking, I always tell them, first off and foremost, it's obedience. Obedience is key. And an obedient dog's going to be easier to train than one that's not. So get the obedience out of the way, get a bond, establish it, and that goes hand in hand. When you're working with that dog, obedience, you're actually building that bond too, and trust. As far as tracking on a bloodhound, it's kind of natural. That's what they're bred to do. That's what they do. But we started out basically with liver or blood on short drags, and always make it fun.
Yeah,
we do these tracks and high reward, high praise, you know, and it goes hand in hand. These tracks, we just start them simple and easy. The dog shows that it can do that, give it a reward and praise, and just start getting longer and longer on the duration and the length of the track. Eventually we get away from the blood and we train on it, on the hoof, a deer hoof. And what we do there, a lot of people don't realize that when a deer gets injured, through its hooves, down there its hooves, there's an interdigital gland that secretes a stress hormone. So that's what we want the dog trained on, because anybody can go out and find blood, track a deer. So that's the big key. That's how we're doing a track that's a day, 2 days old, because you got to think how many deer are crossing that deer's path in a day or two's time. There's deer all over the place. But how is this dog picking that one scent out and finding that deer? And we're training it on that wounded scent.
So they release
a pheromone, a hormone.
So when they're running or something, that dog knows that
It's picking.
that's picking up a scent of a distressed or hurt deer. And like you said, because they go down a deer trail or a deer run that,
how many
deer are walking that same trail.
Yeah.
And they can tell by that.
That's what they say.
Pheromone or whatever.
So we initially get that dog trained on blood and get the game going. So it knows how to use its nose and get to A to B, and that reward and praise. And then we switch over to that pheromone, that hoof. We'll cut those hooves off or cut the legs off the deer, and we'll freeze them up and use them maybe half a dozen times. And then they kind of deteriorate after that. But the harder the deer is hit, the more of that hormone is going to secrete. One that's not wounded. Yeah. So a lot of guys don't realize that. And and I never believed this when it first happened. I read this several years ago when I got in tracking. There was guys swore up and down that their dog could tell whether the deer was dead or alive while on the track. I thought, how the hell's a dog going to do that? But we found that in Dio, didn't we, Gary?
Yep. You can tell.
What was the sign he would give us?
Lay down and roll.
Yeah.
Every time.
So Dio would
You're
do that.
Me.
No, I swear.
Like before he even found it.
No, if we wouldn't find it. And I'd tell hunters that, and they'd look at me like I'm nuts, but it was true. It was true. We would be on the track and he would go so far. And then he'd come to this point where he finally realized it's not hurt bad enough to die. And he would lay down and roll on his back. And I'd tell hunters ahead of time, if this dog rolls over on his back, it's done and over. The deer's likely alive.
You're shitting me.
No, swear to God.
Swear to God. Every time. A live deer.
And any handler is going to tell you their dog is going to have these key signs like that. And that's part of being a tracker is knowing your dog. Trust your dog, but know your dog as well.
That is so interesting that he would give you signs like, hey, we're done, Dad. Yeah.
But that's a seasoned dog. That's a dog that knows. He's like, I'm putting the brakes on pretty much. I'm trying to tell you, here's the deal. This deer's still alive.
Let me ask you this. I've noticed in a lot of videos that you guys make, you and Gary both, you got these dogs on leads, long leads, if that lead was to get away or that dog wasn't on a lead, would it still do its job and stay within, I'm sure he would probably get out in front of you, but would it still do its job and if it took off and you was following and calling for it or whatever, would it be where the deer's at? Or do you have to keep that dog on a leash?
So Illinois law says we have to maintain physical control of the dog at all times. But the lead does slip out of our hands at times. It does happen. We drop the lead. Me and Gary was talking about this on the way over here. Jewel would stop and turn around and wait for you. She would wait. Dio, on the other hand, we'd drop the lead. He might come back or he might not. And I've seen him go half a mile away and hear him barking, but I've got a Garmin collar on there as well that I can shock or tone him and stop him, as backup. But that's what I mean by obedience is key. You want that recall in case you drop the lead. You want that dog to stop and not get out there and get lost and tangled up and maybe starve to death days later or whatever.
Right.
Or there's a lot of dangers running across the road and get run over.
Sure.
So recall is very critical. A lot of people want it.
I got Jewel. She's voice command pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I was running her by myself when he was hurt.
Right.
I started her. I got her pretty good. She you tell her what to do, and she'll stop, look at you, and wait.
Yeah.
Tell her wait.
And, just a great thing. I mean, just so different between her and him. Even though he's part of her, the tracking style is so different. She's
just
slow
personalities.
Personality.
He was a bad dog. Not when I say bad dog, but he's like, you got us here to go get this thing. I'm going to get this thing. Yeah. And she's like, come on, let's go. If we're going to go get it, let's go. Then that's that woman in her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's that testosterone versus estrogen.
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
It's what it is.
That's awesome. So Jewel took off, man. She took off and you had that track in Indiana, and then is the rest been history?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that first year, I think 70 some deer recovered. Now, when I say recovered, there's two different terms there as far as some handlers will say. Recovered to us is a deer put on the tailgate. Now, she's found a lot more deer than that 70 some deer that first year. But the deer got up and ran away from us, so that's kind of a win for the dog, but we don't keep it out as a win. Only the deer we put on the tailgate. And then her second year, which was last year, was almost 100 deer on the tailgate. And I work a full-time job yet, and Gary he's seasonal, so he's able to run her a lot. But with my job, I'm fortunate I've got 33 years in where I work at, so I've got a lot of vacation and time I can take off. So usually this time of year, that's what I do. I use a lot of my vacation time then. So that's how we run so many tracks.
So you guys will get in a truck, and you guys will you take and so you get, as the season comes in, I know damn good and well that the calls are probably going to start day one, or
more than
or it ain't going to take long,
Yeah.
And then the youth season's coming in there, and then naturally as closer the rut gets, the
Oh.
more hectic it gets. But as far as when you guys go and you're planning this, is it like calls start coming in and you're picking? Okay, I know I got this guy called from here, but this guy called from here. Are you trying to work an area to utilize your time
Sure.
per se? I'm sure you have to.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to tell the story of Friday the 13th, 2020. That was a day where we had 9 tracks and recovered 9 deer. But before I go into that, to answer your question, we do go into it logistically as best we can. But then there's the variables of when was that deer shot in that area. There's so many variables, or what was the shot placement. So I got to take into account all that. But more than likely, I weigh on the fact that if we're in this area, we're going to try to stick to this area. But this story on Friday the 13th was just a phenomenal story. It's an unlucky day, Friday the 13th to begin with, supposedly, but that day we recovered 9 deer, put 9 deer on the tailgate, 9 tracks. And if you know these towns, this is the route we took that day. Our first track was in Mode, Illinois, not too far from us in Shelby County.
Okay.
And then we went over near Fillmore area. Was it Fillmore?
Fillmore.
Okay. Fillmore. I know where that's at.
And then we jumped up near Decatur to Long Creek, and from Decatur or Long Creek, we dropped down to Shelbyville, and then went over to Ashmore, which is over by Charleston, and the Greenup, Casey, then down to Mount Vernon, and then to T-Town.
Yep.
So that was 9 tracks. So it was a big loop. I don't know how many miles that was. I did have that figure wrote down, but it was Friday the 13th, November. Rut was on, and it just worked out. I mean, it's something very unusual to track 9 deer in a row in one day in a 24-hour period and put them all in tailgate. The key thing that was there were 9 dead deer.
Right.
One deer, the one on Shelbyville, was still alive, and it was dispatched legally, which we can do that during legal hunting hours. But just a phenomenal day. But part of that was, and it was a weird day. I mean, that day I want to write a book eventually, but I could write a whole chapter. I could probably write a whole book on that track on that one day, because every track was so unique in its own way. Yep, there were so many different things going against us on some of these tracks, and every track was different, and the people we met and stuff. But that day, I think it was after we did the track at Long Creek, we'd heard on the radio it was going to rain the next day, Saturday. All day.
Oh, and you're like,
and so I looked at Gary, and they will forget looking at Gary and said, "You just want to run Dio all day? Let's just run him as long as we can." So we burnt the candle at both ends, and we ran all night long and did all those tracks. Got done that morning, and I had to be at work at 7:00 in the morning. Made it to work on Saturday, and it was one of those days where you could pull up your app on the Weather Channel or whatever weather app you got, and the whole state of Illinois was covered in rain. So it was a good call. We did that. We ran, and we knew we weren't going to track in that rain. Dio hated to track in the rain, and it did. It just rained all day. So he had a full day and a half off of rest, But what a deal.
9 deer in one day.
Yeah.
And found every one of them.
Yep. Yeah. And like I said, there were so many variables, but the biggest variable is dead deer. But that dog could do that. Not a lot of dogs could do that. That dog did it,
I liked the last one, though.
His last track?
Yeah, that day, because we started, and I told Ron, I said, we're going to hurry, we're going to get soaked, drowned. And I walked up, I hitched the dog up, he said the prayer and sent him off, and I was standing there waiting for him. I thought he had to go to the bathroom. Line wouldn't get tight. Well, the deer was laying right there.
You're shit.
The lead wasn't even tight. He's standing there.
Was there a log there, or was there tall weeds?
There's
or what?
A big log.
Yeah.
And he went up the creek, and there's a bunch of little trees, a bunch of weeds. Well, he climbed inside them weeds and that little trees, and he was hiding. And the lead didn't even get tight.
And thank God we needed a short track, because the rest of them had kicked our butts. But that's the weird thing about a deer. The size of a deer and how well they can hide. When they die, you can walk right by them deer. We found deer before at night, and the hunter looks at us and says, "We've walked right by this thing in the day like 3 times." But there again, you're using your eyes versus that nose. You cannot beat that nose.
Yeah.
The nose is.
I jumped off that log that night. Walked across that creek on that log, jumped off the log, jumped right on that deer. And
Thank God it was dead.
I screamed like a little girl.
He did. He did.
I thought he was, because he looked like he was alive getting ready to jump at me, but he was laying there dead.
So, and that's the thing about it. This is dangerous stuff. I mean, it's.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit because a couple things I wanted to ask. One, I wanted to ask between Dio and Jewel, as far as recovery tracks, as far as corn dragging in the wagon and Dio with Buck on the truck. As far as what is the longest track both of them dogs have went on and recovered a deer?
So Dio, we documented one at 52 hours old, and then the one that Jewel did, that velveted doe, 55. So she edged him out of a recovered deer. That was
55 hours later,
and found him. Well, look,
and I think that's important. And I don't think it's important for the to high five how great. I think it's important for hunters to understand. I think this is valuable because it's okay to wait. We think, oh, if we wait, this is going to happen. And listen, and maybe I'm wrong by saying this, and if I am, I apologize to people out there. But if you're hunting a specific deer that you've been after, okay, and it's something that you've been targeting, you've waited X amount of years, and you finally got your opportunity, and you make an unfortunate shot on it, and it doesn't perspire when you needed it to, and you guys come in, okay. Chances are it's probably going to get some coyote damage. But at the end of the day, you weren't after the sausage on that deer anyways. You were hunting that deer for its head. So that waiting, that I think it's important for people to realize that 55 hours, that wait got that person that deer. You're after that head anyways. So and not on all deer, and I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you're hunting a big deer and you push it and then you lose it, just like you said when we first started a while ago, if that weight, these dogs, maybe not all circumstances, but a lot, that's 55 hours later. Yeah. And you're jumping out of a tree an hour and chasing it down. And this dog can help you potentially. Yeah. I'm sure that doesn't happen every time, but even if you back it off to 30 hours or 20 hours or 10, you're still gaining yourself so much more opportunity versus trying to jump down and trash it in an hour and a half or 2 hours. And then you got 10 buddies in there trashing it, so I think that's a valuable point, how up to, and maybe longer, who knows, but 55 hours later, these dogs were still able to find a deer. People need to think about that a little bit. We got time, guys. Oh yeah. We've got some time here. We don't, if chances, and I know that on does and stuff like that, it might be different, but because you do want the meat. And I'm not saying that people don't utilize the meat on them bucks, but at the end of the day, what did you shoot it for? Because you wanted to mount it. You wanted the big rack. So let's be real.
So yeah, in my interview process, a lot of times the hunter are telling me how tall, the brow tines are, or how massive it was, or had a drop tine. And they want to track that deer right away or get us there as quick as they can. It's like, I kind of stop them right there. I said, well, anywhere in this conversation, I never heard you say anything about back straps or hams on that deer. It was all about the antler. So yeah, we can agree on that. Yeah. It's unfortunate to lose an animal to predators, but sometimes, like I said, that weight is critical, because if you jump that deer too soon, it's not dead. Shot placement's always key, but man, there are so many variables. What looks like a good shot may have deflected on the inside, not hit as good as what you thought. And we've chased liver hit deer a day and a half later during the rut. During the rut, they're just unbelievable, the things we've seen. I've jokingly said these things are from another planet. I mean, like a UFO has come in and put them on here, because these deer can survive some traumatic wounds. And it's just unreal.
And to see that 55-hour deer, we went and tracked one. The same guy. We just tracked his second deer he just shot. We tracked it and found it. Then he turned around and asked us if we'd try that one.
Why we were there? Yeah, just by chance.
Because he shot it and they couldn't find it. They tracked everywhere. We said, yeah. And they asked if it'd bother the dog. I said, no, because it changes scents. Still two different deer. So we went and put her on track. The arrows was still there and everything. He left it, and she got on it and took off and went to the river and got out on a little island. She was working it. So that deer laid out in that sand. And come back, started down through there. About that time, bobcat jumped out of the tree at her.
No shit.
And she took up after it, and I hollered at her, told her to get back. So she came back, and she went on down. She walked the water down along the edge, and she turned and went up the hill. So I walked on, and I come around that bend. She was standing up there with it.
No
She
shit.
tracked it right up.
So yeah, and see, there's dogs that's found deers a week later. So in those situations, usually it's not tracking; it's probably an air scent deal where the carcass is over here and the wind's blowing right,
Mm.
you know. But that was a true track at 55
The
hours.
wind was totally different direction and everything. We was
Really?
And that was a very unusual deer. It was a velveted, had a rack on. It was a doe.
It was
wind velvet.
doe.
I'll be
Big.
darned.
It was big.
That's crazy. You don't hear a lot of those.
No, just amazing, you know.
Yep. Went from one deer and just drove, 100 yards.
Yeah.
Put her on that track, and she tracked it up 55 hours later.
But with all this tracking, fellas, how far, what is the longest that you've seen a deer go that you've been able to find? Like, I shot him here and you guys got involved and you got your dogs involved and started tracking and found it dead. How far? Like miles or like distance wise?
You're talking about, yeah, we've had 4 miles, 4.3 miles before.
You're shitting me.
And I'm not making that up. That's through a Garmin that's measuring us where our route. That's
Well,
not.
it was so far.
No.
We called his daughter to pick us up.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, on that dead deer at 4 miles in, where was shot placement? Like what kind of shot placement? Where were we hit? Because I think a lot of this is good knowledge, because I think people need to understand, you know, even with a one lung or a liver or guts or whatever, how far these deer truly can go. For one, if you pressure them and push them, or two, if they just get that death run and go,
Yeah.
you know, what kind of shot placement was on a deer at 4 miles away?
At that particular track on 4.3 miles, I wasn't there for the shot, of course, but he told me it was a good shot. We always hear it was a good shot. And sometimes the hunter don't know it actually, but we're
all guilty of that. Oh, Ronnie, I'm telling you, I smoked him. I know I smoked him, Ronnie. I smoked him.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, that's why we're here, because you smoked him.
Yeah.
And I've learned that, you know, we laugh about it and stuff, but there's that adrenaline rush when you shoot. Everything's split second, and you know where you're aiming, but did you hit there? There's a huge difference between aim point and hit point. A lot of guys shoot on the ground all the time, practice, but they never shoot from elevations. And normally you're in an elevated stance. So that messes things up. And arrow deflection, whatever. There's all kinds of variables. But that particular deer come in really close to the guy, had a pass through, and it ended up, we got on the deer and we was tracking the next day. He shot the night before, we was tracking the next day, and had plenty of real estate to track on. And it was all good. And that's another thing we like to talk about before we go on a track. Always try to get the neighboring landowner to, get permission before we get there.
That's huge.
We don't know. And you got to have permission. You can't trespass. You know, the landowner owns that ground. They trump everybody. You know, if they don't want anybody on the ground, no means no. But anyway, we had the real estate. We got on this deer, finding wound beds here and there, but blood, and it was wet blood. So we thought maybe we was pushing the deer, and we thought, well, okay, as long as we're on blood, we're going to keep going for this deer. And it just went on and on and on and on. Ended up catching up to the deer, and it was still alive. It was laying down in a little depression, a water hole kind of cooling off. And it was a ways ahead of us before we finally caught up to it. But the hunter it was during daylight, and the hunter was able to dispatch the deer, shoot it again. And it was a nice deer. It was a booner buck as well. But that initial shot was in the front leg. So what had happened was, it broke the leg. And a 3-legged deer can run like a 4-legged deer. I've seen them jump fences. On crazy what they can do. But what we was inadvertently doing, I didn't know the shot. He claimed it was behind the shoulder, but he broke that front leg. We was just basically pushing that deer, wearing it down. It was still bleeding. It probably wasn't going to bleed out. It was significant blood, but it takes a lot of blood to bleed one out.
I think people don't realize that either.
Oh, it's yeah.
You know what I mean? Because when you shoot a deer and you're walking, you're like, oh my God, look at all this blood. But really, what looks like a lot of blood, if you was to gather all that up, it's not a lot of blood.
So
it's not, unless it's puddled and pooled where you could just see it just pumping out. But when you're walking and you're seeing blood,
and
you're
it looks
thinking,
impressive,
man, it's bleeding like crazy. It's not.
And it could be bleeding internally as well.
Right. And you're right. It could.
But I did some research on that, and a 150-pound deer it has to lose 44 ounces of blood. So that's a 40-ounce beer can, a little more than a 40-ounce beer can of blood. I can lay a blood trail for 5 miles with that.
Wow.
Yeah, a good blood trail. So it fools a lot of people, and you get those brisket hits or muscular or rear ham. and those muscular hits will bleed a lot, especially with a large mechanical broadhead. It's just a huge gaping wound, and you cut yourself shaving, you're going to bleed a lot too.
Yeah, sure.
But it ain't going to kill you.
Right.
And that's what these deer, it's just that illusion, it suckers guys in. It's like, this deer's got to be dead. It's bleeding like crazy. And then you get so far and it quits. And then you're calling like, well, there's a reason you're calling, and you might have got some veins or maybe nicked an artery. You never know. Like I said, it's worth the effort. You drew blood. We got to do, and that's our point too. We don't recover a lot of deer, but sometimes we can ease a hunter's mind to know that deer's not laying there dead. Hey, it's probably still alive. And I can hunt this deer yet. And usually they show back up on camera.
Yeah. You brought that up earlier, how you thought that the deer were from another planet and stuff, but it's amazing that I've never had one like that, but I've had friends and seen people who've shot them and they go and bone them out, and there's broadheads in the
from year before
in their shoulders,
slugs
and slugs, and it's like, these animals have ran around, and I'm like, think about that. You're moving this limb, and we're going to go into this because we're going to get into this shortly here. Yeah. People are going to realize how Ron understands this.
I can relate.
But that grinding and just, how and they just keep just going.
Let alone live through the elements, extreme heat and the cold and the blizzards and whatnot.
Yes. It's amazing just what they're capable of.
Much respect for them. Most hunters do respect the game. And
something else I like that you said, and I think that is a good thing, and I think it's a good thing for you and your dogs. But I almost think, after having this conversation, you have the phone call with the person, and if they'll listen to you, and sometimes it's hard. It is, as a hunter, sometimes it's hard to listen to somebody else tell me what to do with this. But if you would just truly listen, for one, you guys in a way have a way of helping the situation by saying, I could come right now. I mean, I could come down there right now, but I can even manipulate you into saying, well, I got to go do this and go do that track, knowing that all you're doing is trying to give more time. Yeah. You guys can almost help with that time thing by pulling the reins back on when you're going to show up, because okay, he's not waited long enough, even if he's telling me that he hit it here, okay, that deer's going to need this amount of time. I could tell him that, but he ain't going to listen. But I'm just going to say, I can get there at such and such time. And you're almost helping yourselves by doing that, because you're knowing, okay, I'll put the time, I'll put the weight in for him, because we're wasting our time if we go down there now and bump it. So I'm just going to pull back the reins here a little bit. And I think that's, for hunters, it's good, because we get wrapped up in the moment, we're in the moment. We're not thinking about all that at that time, and then later they're probably like, man, that's such a good thing we probably waited.
Well, and there's three things that's going to cause you to lose your beer. Other people have said this too. The 3 B's: there's blood, buddies, and beer. Alcohol is going to cloud your judgment. Your buddies, they're going to talk you into it, even though they're not there for the shot. They're going to tell you that deer's dead. They want the best for you. I get it. I understand. They want you to get your deer. And that blood, we talked about that deceit of that blood. It takes a lot to bleed one out.
I truly think, and you guys tell me, and this is probably going to be in the tips part of this, but if you do not physically watch that deer fall over, kick, die, quit breathing, what do you think? You guys have been out here tracking these damn things. Bare minimum time. If you don't see this damn thing fall over dead, what do you say? Bare minimum.
If you know that it was a heart shot or double lung, 2 hour minimum. 2 hour minimum.
And it's even hard to know if it was a.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's right on you, you might know, man. I mean, I put it right where it needs.
And your crossbows. I mean, I found this out, literally at talking to them. I don't shoot a crossbow. I have shot a couple, I guess, but they shoot so fast, and you're looking through a scope, you don't know where that bolt hits. You have no idea. So a crossbow hunter generally does not know, even with a lit knock, unless you got a recording of it or something. That's the only way you're gonna know. So
your mind puts that arrow where you think you need to hit it, but that arrow is someplace else.
Yeah, and there's so much. That's a whole nother topic when you get into the mind, the brain, and all that. Because I got some guys that are big time shooters, and they go to these classes and these seminars with these people that teach them how to how to use their brain in a certain way, because it's there's a whole lot of shit that goes into this, into shooting and shot placements and shooting off a react. I mean, that's a different story, a whole different show.
I mean, years ago, I did a track for a guy that shot on the USA Olympic archery team. You know, you can't get a better shot than this guy, you know, but yet he tells me he gets target panic, you know, or when he's shooting at a live animal, he gets that jitters and stuff. Totally, and that's natural.
It is. I did a show with a guy about that. We discussed all that, you know, and controlling those emotions. And some people are better at it than others. And some people just can't help it. And I can appreciate it. You know, I get it. I was telling a buddy of mine, I get that, but I don't get it till as soon as it's over. Yeah. Like I do this, I got a system in my head that I do. I talked about this on another show, that I run my brain through a system when the deer's coming. Like, and what it does is it keeps me from it keeps me from all of that. And then the minute I let it go, I mean, it just, it all falls out, you know, and if I don't sit down, I'll fall out of the damn tree. You know, it just gets so worked up. But I want to talk about it. So we transitioned to Jewel, and we were hunting her ass off, and she's doing good. There was a pretty bad night happened. And I want to talk about it a little bit because I think it's important.
Oh yeah.
And I hope you're okay with talking about it.
No, I'm totally fine with it.
Let's bring the day to a fold and unfold the day.
I'm trying to think what day. I know it was in October of 22, but I don't remember the particular day. It's irrelevant, but early in October, second or third week. But anyway, I get a call that evening, the evening before. The hunter shot his target deer in a bean field with a crossbow. Didn't have anything to work off blood-wise or whatever, and wanted us to come down and track the deer. I said, well, is this your target deer? We're going to let the deer lay all night, for one thing, because you're not sure exactly where you hit it or whatever, and let's just give the deer time to expire. He was good with that, so that was the first track of the day, the next day. Me and Gary load up, head down, meet the hunter and stuff, talk about things, go out to the hit site in the bean field, and say my usual prayer. I always say a prayer at the start of every track.
I love that, by the way.
Thank the Lord. No,
I love that, by the way.
It's sincere. It's like I'm blessed to be alive, to enjoy what I'm doing, enjoy the wilderness he provides for us. Did that prayer. We start the track. Me and the hunter stay behind Gary, like protocol is. We stay behind Gary. Gary takes off with Jewel through the bean field to some CRP grass. It's probably about average waist to chest high, big, huge field of it. He's still calling blood, so we're still falling behind him. And he comes to point out that CRP ways out there, and he says, hey, I got a wound bed. I've got another wound bed and another one, like 3 wound beds or something like that, Gary. Right in a row. So we thought the deer was hurt pretty bad. We catch up to Gary. Gary waits for us, and we converse about this a bit. And the hunter had his crossbow, which is totally legal. You know, we was doing everything legal. And he'd asked about what should I do? Should I load my crossbow or what? And I said, yeah, I'm fine with that. As long as you keep it pointed in a safe direction, I'm fine with it. We've done it before. So he does that. And the reason being we decided to load the crossbow is, and I've got a video on my phone, it happens. These deer love CRP. They love to get in that CRP when they're wounded. We find a lot of deer in the CRP, but they get in there because they feel concealed and safe. It's comfort to them. But for some reason, when we started the track on this deer after the 3rd wound bed, the deer kind of went out in the center of the field and then looped back, come back, and was heading back into the woods. Well, the hunter was doing everything right. He really was. He was beside me at that point, carrying the crossbow pointed up away from us. And I was happy with that. Everything was going good. Well, when I was videotaping Gary at the time with my cell phone, just making some videos with it, and Gary's leaving the CRP in front of us. He's probably 20, 30 yards in front of us, and I hear him say blood as he's going in the woods. So I'm zooming in, watching that spot there so I can see it when I get up there to show the hunter. And we get to that spot, about to that spot, and all of a sudden I'm hitting the ground. Something knocked me down. It's like I thought I tripped at first, but I freaking got shot from behind. The hunter was behind me at that point instead of beside me. And I honestly don't know what happened. I think he said the safety was on, and he said it kind of stumbled or whatever, but the crossbow went off, shot me through the leg.
Holy shit.
So, yeah, 2-inch range crossbow. He was probably less than 10 yards from me when it blew through my leg. So it was sticking. It passed through my leg, but the fletchings and the knock was still inside the bone below my knee. yelled out to Gary. Of course, Gary heard the crossbow go off.
So, okay. So I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing.
No.
Trust me, I'm not laughing at the situation, but what in Sam hell was you thinking? Because you're up in front, you're working the dog. So you hear this, you probably hear him holler, scream,
Holler, go
something.
down.
F-bomb,
Yeah.
constantly.
What's going through your mind at this point,
Well,
Gary?
I turned around and looked. He was holding his belly, laying on the ground. I said, "Oh no!" It went through his back, coming out of his belly. So I hurried up and tied her up, and went back, and we got him rolled over. And when we rolled him over, I seen it stuck through his leg. I thought, "Phew."
It was surreal, man.
Yeah. Then I had to think, "Oh my God, did it cut that main artery?" So I cut his pants to look in there and see if the blood was pouring out, but it was just trickling down his leg. And he kept telling me, he said, "Man, it's pulling down my leg. It's filling my boot." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "It's just the warm coming down your leg." I said, "You think it's bleeding a lot?" "Oh, it is. My boot's getting full." I said, "No, your boot ain't getting full." I said, "You're just going in shock." I said, "I'm watching it." So then about that time, the hunter, he goes, "What do I do? What do I do?" I said, "You got to call 911. "Well, how do I do that?" I said, "You got to push 911. "Oh." So he pushed 911, and she answered. And he goes, I said, "When she answers," I said, "you answer her questions." And soon she answered the phone, he just started rattling on. I said, "No, you have to stop and listen to her." And he said, "Okay." So she asked him, "Where you at?" or "What happened?" He said, "I just shot a guy." Then he started rattling again. I said, "No, you have to stop and answer her questions." I said, "Just answer her questions. Don't say anything else." "Okay." So he started again. She asked him, got all the information. They started rattling again. I said, "No, you got to stop. Just."
So he was probably in shock.
He was
he
bad,
was.
bad.
He's probably
any of
freaking-
us sitting at this table would have been in shock.
100%. I couldn't imagine that. I really couldn't.
People ask me how this happened, and I make a joke of it anymore. I said, "Well, the hunter got pissed at us. We didn't find his deer, so he shot me." But I can laugh about it. But honestly, if it was me, I put myself in his shoes at the time. I felt bad for him. It was an accident. It was not done on purpose.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you're laying there.
Yeah.
And how far are we from as far as getting you help? I mean, are we on a big block of timber or, area where we close to a road, or are we in a bad spot here?
It was in a field. There's a grass road coming along the edge of woods, but it was in a CRP field.
Luckily, I was just right at the edge of the woods there, and he was able to get his wits together, and we got him out to the road so he could meet the first responders and drive the ambulance back there. Well, the ambulance was fire department ambulance was first there, which they in turn, they didn't want to take it out. They didn't want to move it because of that femoral artery. So they called the helicopter in. So they landed the helicopter in the CRP. Very fortunate. It was all right there by the edge of the woods. Got me on the helicopter, and the initial picture I sent to my boss was that crossbow bolt in my leg. And I said, "Hey, I'm coming into work tomorrow." And he thought I was pranking him,
We prank everybody. That's why.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of fun tracking. We really do. But the next picture I sent him on the helicopter heading to St. Louis, laying there with the bolt in my leg, and said, "Oh, you're not coming in, are you?" I said, "No, I'm not." But keep in mind, it was all a tragic deal. And the hunter, it was a total accident. He was going in shock. I was kind of in shock. Gary is a certified first responder. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
He knew what to do, kept his cool, unscrewed the broadhead off so nobody else would get cut where he showed up, monitored me until they got there and bandaged me up. But the crazy part of that is they're lifting off in the helicopter, and the pilot says, anything you need to know before it goes? "Yeah, just lift off, circle this woods. I'm pretty sure that deer's in the woods." He said, "No, we're gonna go to St. Louis."
So utilize you're paying for the damn thing anyway. So let's go ahead and utilize it, right?
Yeah, they had a little fun, but keep in mind. So all this happens. I get shot. I'm on the ground. All these people come, first responders, police department, DNR, helicopter lands, and takes me off and away. And there's Jewel and Gary to finish the track off, And what she do, she goes and finds it. How far was it from where we shot?
About 80 yards.
Yeah, 80.
So hold on. So you get shot. You go through all this crap, of happening, and helicopter comes, off you fly, people disperse out. Or did they all stay there for you to finish the track?
Oh, yeah. We was there. Game warden stayed and everything. They went with us.
Yeah. Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's a testament there,
even to the dog for all that
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
For her to go through all that and me disappear and, the helicopter would be enough.
And she laid over and curled up asleep the whole time. Didn't phase her a bit.
I wish dogs could talk.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because I would love to hear what she's thinking.
You say that, and there was a thing with Dio, and somewhat with Jewel too, but Dio especially. I could look at him and look in his eyes and know his thoughts, and I think he could do the same with me. That's that bond I'm talking about. It's just that eye contact,
right?
We knew each other that well. But yeah, to go on and find that deer was just it was a bad circumstance, bad deal. We've learned from that. We're not going to allow that to happen. To carry a loaded hunting device, they can cock the crossbow back, but keep the bolt out.
Sure, I get it.
It don't take long, But you that's as an accident, wasn't on purpose. We've done it before in the past. You get complacent. That's how accidents happen. So out of this bad thing happening to me, damn near killed me. It was a centimeter away from my femoral artery.
Gosh,
so
you got so lucky.
Oh yeah, 2-inch rage going through vertically. Had it turned and went horizontally, it would hit that artery. So game over more than likely, but out of that bad thing, it's educated a lot of my fellow trackers. They used to do the same thing and they won't allow it anymore. They know what happened to me, and I'll go to hunter safety classes. Me and Gary will go and we'll
such a good idea too.
Yeah. It's
turn that into a learning for people.
Oh, why not? Yeah. I mean, just a normal day turned into that,
What do you think as far as, well, I want to know, I want you to finish that story. You ain't finishing the story. See, you're missing the best part of the story. So Ron gets helicoptered to St. Louis.
Barnes Jewish.
Okay. You pick up from there.
So yeah, the crazy part of that is I don't talk about this a lot, but as I'm laying on the table up there, I'm a freak up there because in St. Louis, they're used to dealing with gunshots and not archery wounds. So everybody in the floor is up there coming and looking at this like,
right, because they've never seen nothing like this before.
They're freaks. They want to see this weird stuff, And so I had to Google a picture of a crossbow bolt to show them. They didn't even know which way it went through. So I had to show them, say, hey, there's still a knock and fletchings inside my leg. When you get in there and do the surgery, take it out. So that was a little insightful, but there was a point up there where I had actually lost enough blood that they had to give me blood. And that was the strangest feeling. They say, when you feel like you're dying. I hate to make this sound dramatic, but man, I really did. I thought I felt funky. I felt tingly. I felt cold. Things were weird. And man, as soon as they gave me that blood, I came right back. So I'm very lucky in this whole ordeal that they had a helicopter to get me there in time.
Yeah.
But back to that story though, they did that. They were still testing for COVID as well then too. So they come and swab my nose before the surgery. Well, they came back, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 minutes later, you're COVID positive, which I had no idea, how that COVID works. I
right.
I'm out tracking deer and had tracks planned for the day. So they did the surgery, 2-hour surgery. And the funny thing there was, a doctor told me after the surgery, said, that's pretty weird. We cut you open. There's a blinking light inside your leg. Well, I forgot to tell them there's a lit knock possibly, so they're freaking out when they're cutting in there and this light's blinking. They have no idea, So a new experience for them. So we get through the surgery and they put me in a special room after the surgery for COVID. There was another individual in there and he was hacking his lungs out, constantly coughing. And I never will forget Tara saying, so, well, if you ain't got COVID, you've got it now. Cause this guy's coughing all the time. So they tell me there the next day, this is the following day after the surgery, they put 2 screws in, 2-hour surgery, got 2 screws permanently in my leg. They said, if you can do these 2 or 3 things when the therapist comes in, physical therapist will dismiss you. And I'd step up on a box. I was weight bearing after this. I mean, it broke my tibia and went right through the bone. And so they put those screws in there. I'm weight bearing. It's sore, but I did those 2 or 3 things they wanted me to do. And they said, okay, we'll let you go home. Well, nothing ever happens fast. There again, I had to wait. That word wait for them to process the papers and get all that done. And it's getting close to dark. They finally get everything finalized for me to get out of there the following day after the surgery, after getting shot. So they're wheeling me out of the room and going down to the van. The wife drove a Chrysler minivan, a Town and Country with tinted windows, and she was wise about it. She'd folded down the rear seats, and it's about dark anyway. And the back windows are tinted.
You're laughing too. I'm sorry.
So we get down there, and she's parked in front of the hospital underneath the carport thing, and there's people behind us wanting to load their patients up. And So she opens the door and I slide out of the wheelchair and slide in the back of the van, lay down. And I said to her, oh crap, we forgot the urinal. It's like, I paid for this urinal. I'm sure it was like $500 for the urinal, it's a $5 piece and it costs $500. But anyway, I really needed that urinal to get,
right. That's a long drive from St. Louis to.
Well, it's that, and it's practical for him because it's like it hurt to walk. It hurt. I just wanted to just stay in bed as much as I could. So she pulls up out of the way and the window's down on her driver's side window, but leaves the van running. And she's just thinking, okay, I'll run up and go get that real quick. Well, she run up to go get it. And I'm sitting there all by myself in the van. It's running. And this dude gets in and he starts taking off. It's like, whoa. The first thing I said, whoa, dude, what are you doing? And he just replied back. He said, I'm security. I got to move your van. It's like, you're not security the way you're dressed. I didn't say that, but I thought in my head, what is really going on? So I raise up and look as he's driving, and he's actually pulling out of the parking lot. I always forget the name of the street behind Barnes Jewish there, but he pulls out on that main drag behind Barnes Jewish.
Is that Kings Highway?
Kings. I think it is.
I think it is.
Turns right and goes down a ways. And I'm starting to, okay, I got to get my shit together. I wish I would have pulled my phone out and went Facebook Live or something at the time, but hindsight,
It's just been shot.
But what do you do? So this guy's taking off in the van. It's like, I'm here, I'm stuck. And it's like, this is bad. This is St. Louis. This guy might
right. This isn't fun. I mean, this is what's funny, kind of comical is kind of turned serious here.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he could easily turn around. At the time, my oldest daughter she was before this happened, she was a nurse over there in St. Louis, but she moved away because it got so rough over there. Her vehicle was getting broke into. She was an ER nurse and said, Dad, people are getting shot just by looking over at somebody driving down the road. They'll shoot you. So don't look over at anybody when you come over here. So that's how bad St. Louis was and probably still is, I'm assuming.
It's rough, I hear.
But anyway, I'm at the mercy of this guy. It's like, because I can't defend myself. My leg's all jacked up. I'm medicated, and not feeling the best. And so I start telling him, said, dude, I got COVID. They diagnosed me with COVID. I got shot yesterday with a crossbow. I got surgery and all this stuff. He keeps driving, pulls in, and I don't know what he comes to a stop sign kind of right there by Children's Hospital. And he mumbles something. I don't know what he said. I wish I knew what he said, but I don't, because he never did turn around and look at me. He just stayed looking ahead. And he mumbled something, put the van in park, opened the door, took off running. Well, when he did that, he left the door running. I'm sitting at this intersection. And everybody sees this van running and seeing this guy running away from him. So that gets reported. And next thing I know, all these bicycle cops are surrounding me and stuff, like wanting to know what went down. So I told them the story. Well, at the time, Tara had no idea where I was at. She comes down.
She comes out holding your piss jug.
Yeah. She's got the urinal in hand.
She's got the urinal. Where's he at?
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. We said this 100 times. And she comes down and she has no cell phone because the cell phone and her purse is right between the seats where this guy was at. He didn't take him, thank God.
Oh, gosh.
But I think what happened was the dude was so freaked out that he thought he was going to get by with an empty van. It was running. I'm going to take it as an opportunity. But he didn't know this guy was laying in the back, it was just added baggage. But I thought really when he got out and bailed, is he going to get his buddies? I didn't know.
Right. You know what?
I'm just,
you're at the mercy of whatever's going to happen here.
Exactly. And that all went down. So I'm sitting there and the cops interviewing me and stuff. And I realized Tara's phone's there. It's like, oh crap, she's going to freak out, and I'm blocks away now and she don't know where I'm at. She's going to freak out. So I get a phone call from a Missouri number. I'm assuming it's her. It could have been a track call maybe, but I'm assuming it's her. So I answer it. And it's her. She had borrowed somebody's phone.
Did she say, what where are you?
Yeah, she at first, as Gary said, we punk everybody. She thought I punked her. She thought she was looking around. She said, there's no way he could have done it with his leg. There's no way he could have got in front. So she was freaking out. And I basically told her today, they'll get me to you or somehow they'll get us hooked up together, which they did. They got us together and stuff. Never did catch the guy. There's surveillance cameras all over the hospital. They had it on video, but he just concealed enough with the hat and whatnot. But
at that point, it's like, I'm just glad I'm alive. I'm glad this is,
Well, yeah.
You finding that's your business. I need to go home.
Get me out of St. Louis,
I've been shot in the leg. I just want to go home, man.
Yeah, but that's how life is so crazy. It's weird, man. Things can happen in an instant, And And two weird circumstances there, just bang, bang, we laugh about it now. And it is funny, but it's also.
It's serious. It's just funny. It's comical that, man, not only did I get shot, but gee, Manelli's, I mean, what more are you going to get? You're looking at what more are you going to throw at me here, brother? I mean, come on.
Just a little twist to it. I was, when you're in a hospital like that, the food sucks. It's nasty, not the best. So that's another reason to get out of there. But I had a craving. You get those weird cravings. And I wanted a Wendy's Frosty really bad. So by the time we're getting out of St. Louis and Terrace, she always says, my wife, she says, I'm a country mouse. I'm not a city mouse. She hates driving in town, big cities, and I do too. But she's got anxiety really bad. We drive by a couple Wendy's. I'm craving for a Frosty. We miss our ordeal there. I said, well, I think we can still hit the one in Vandalia. It'll be open yet. So we did that. We pulled the drive up, placed the order for single fries and a Frosty. And the lady says, I'm sorry. And I swear I thought she was going to say, I'm sorry, we're out of Frosties. And it's like, there again, I thought, Lord, please no. And thank God they were out of French fries, but it wasn't a Frosty. But I thought, man, 3 strikes. Oh, man. But,
oh, man, that's crazy. That is just crazy. So, I mean, I think the point of this is us as hunters just also need to always be aware, because it might not be a tracker. Okay. I mean, you're messing with your crossbows at home. You're getting ready for the season. You're out in your stand. I mean, I bring this up. We have this conversation because there is a learning thing here. I mean, it's important that we, that a crossbow they're deadly, so, just understanding that these things can happen.
Oh, and
it happens
in the 12 years of tracking, meeting people. There's more than a handful of people I've talked to about safety restraints. It's fell that didn't have the harness on or whatever. That's another thing. We overlook things. We get complacent. And things can happen in a heartbeat.
Yes. Let me ask you this. What do we got? We got Jewel as our aid dog. What do we got coming up?
So
at Slifers Bloodhound.
So Jewel had a litter. We had her bred by a tracking dog over in Carrollton, Illinois, Doc, out of Marissa Rosen Trainers. So a great bloodline mix there, 2 tracking working dogs. Jewel ended up having 12 puppies. We sold all of them, but kept 1. We kept the runt. And very promising. I've worked him a little bit. He's 6 months old now. Reminds me a lot of Dio at that age, And a lot of people ask me now, said, who's a better dog between Jewel and Dio? And that's hard for me to say that she's better than Dio. I can't bring myself to say, but I always say it at her age versus Dio's age, she's a lot better than him. And part of that is because I've got experience now. At 2 years old with Dio, I didn't have that experience. But now I've got 10 years of woods experience, and Gary as well.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Yeah, for sure.
And the education's been key too. A lot of hunters now do know, not to track it up before a dog comes in, and the do's and don'ts.
Well, let's do this. Before I wrap this up, I want to, because of what you do, and we've hit on some of this stuff, but I do want to kind of hit on it again and maybe some other things. But as far as hunters go, as far as your guys' world, and even if there's other things you want to bring up, I'm completely fine with. But
sure.
As far as tips for to help them, get the best opportunity at the recovery on a shot that maybe wasn't, as good, or even on a good shot. Hell, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some things that we as hunters can do, should not do, and should be thinking about.
Sure.
And I'm going to let you guys and I'll just kind of jump in, but let's talk about this a little bit, because I think this will help make your lives easier and make our lives as hunters easier. I think if we're going to utilize, if I'm calling you, there should be some things that need to happen that's going to give me the best opportunity for you to do your job.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'm going to say, Gary, and you're going to agree with me, I know, is we're on the same side as a hunter. Truth. That's all we need is the truth. Don't elaborate. Don't make things up. If you don't know, you don't know. I want truthful answers. You'd be surprised how many times we catch somebody that'll, we didn't go here. We didn't do this or that. But then we're on the track, and while we're overhearing them, or we'll see footprints, but I'll overhear them saying, oh, we already looked here. Why are they here? So we're on your side.
Right.
You
Don't.
know?
There's no need to lie to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't help you if you're not giving me all the clues or all the.
We're on the same team.
The dog's going to tell you anyway.
Yeah.
If they're lying.
The dog. Yeah. I talked about that grid search. You know, a dog will struggle rather than take the line straight. Like if she's out there with her nose to the ground, going all over the place, trying to figure this out.
You know that somebody's been walking around.
It's been a stomp on, been tracked on.
And then I stopped and turned around and I asked him, I said, whose footprints are these? Oh, we did walk over. Yeah, I know.
So
before I even got there.
Yeah. So that's the main thing. I want hunters to know we are on your team. Just be truthful with us, you know.
Yeah, don't
Sure.
lie.
But as far as the best things to increase your odds, I always say give that deer time, the wait. We'll talk about the wait times here in a minute, but you know, give the deer time to expire, wait, walk away from him, clear your head, go try to find your deer. You know, we get guys that call us right away that you'll see it on Facebook. I just shot a big one, or I got blood. Who's got a dog? Do the right thing. Go out and try to find your deer yourself. Do it with 1 or 2 people. Take your time. Mark it well. Mark your blood trail with toilet paper. Toilet paper is best. I'm going to make a post about this too. It's biodegradable. It's relatively cheap. It was expensive during COVID, but
Right.
but you know, mark that with toilet paper. You can lay that on the ground. It'll melt away in the rain. But the main thing is when that blood trail ends, mark that spot then with that toilet paper. Hang it up in a tree. That way we're going to see it, because you may be out there in the daylight, but we may be coming at night, coming in at a different angle. And we need to see this spot. We need to find that point of loss. That's the critical part. A lot of guys will want to pin it with their phone, which technology is great. Don't get me wrong. But those pins will float around. We've seen that, Gary.
You're absolutely
They'll float. And so then if they float around, we're out there grid searching, essentially, tracking it up, making it hard for the dog. If you don't have toilet paper, ain't nothing better than an arrow in the ground with a lit knock on the end. That's the best. But we've been on these tracks where the point of loss, POLs, been in a cornfield, and they'll mark it with a corn cob. How many? Or I marked it with a stick, and and at the time I guess
Well, I think it's that stick.
Yeah.
Well, no, it ain't. No, it ain't. It
how
ain't
many-
that one. It's that one over there.
How many sticks are in the woods? So that's the main. I like to emphasize that. It makes the work for us so much easier. And it's not just us. Any tracker is going to appreciate that. The other thing, before a tracker gets there, I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about all trackers in general. It's a state law here in Illinois, and I think most states are. You got to have permission to cross a property line. So if you got that wounded deer and that runs to the west, and you know that neighbor, call that neighbor and say, hey, we're going to be tracking a deer. We shot a deer. Can we track on your ground? Get that permission before we get there, not when we get there. Get it ahead of time, because that's a big waste for us. If that's a no-go and we show up to that property line, we can't go there. We can't go there. No means no. So get that cleared up ahead of time, because it's a good possibility if that deer went to the west, it probably went onto that neighboring ground. So clear that up ahead of time before we get there. But know your details. Don't elaborate. Tell the truth. What do you think? What else you think, Gary?
Let's see. Don't mark your stuff in the woods with camouflage gloves and
Yeah,
jersey gloves.
Yeah, something man-made is more definite than like you said. Something, make it easy to see. The brighter, the better.
Yeah.
I think something that I've learned from you and that I use. I had a friend of mine up where I'd hunted. I'd reached out to you about what we should do, and you sent me that picture.
Oh, yeah,
with the grid with the A's and A through whatever and none numbered down. And I even took that farther to take that grid that you'd sent me and like put that over a vitaled area of a deer. And I think people should do, I think we should do this as hunters, is like, grid that thing with the opened side of the vitals of the animal that you're hunting, and study what's in those grids, because a lot of us, like you'd brought it up, either, oh, I smoked him, well, it went in here, I smoked him. But like you said, arrows do funny things. I mean, shit happens. You could split the lungs, and you think, man, I smoked him, or the angle you went in, you thought you got,
angles are big. Yeah,
because you got this, and you just clipped a lung. You didn't double lung him. You clipped one.
So there again, your eyes play trick on you. On those lit knocks, you'll see where that lit knock hit the deer basically. But you got to think about your angle. The broadhead is actually lower usually if you're shooting elevated. So you didn't hit where that knock was. You hit lower than that. So that can deceive a lot of people.
And just trying to give you guys, I mean, as much information
accurate as you can,
because then you know what you're dealing with, or you got a better idea what they're dealing with,
and call regardless. I mean, advice is free over the phone. If we can get I'll answer the phone if I'm not busy or whatever, but we can give you advice over the phone. Sometimes we've done that. We can't get to somebody or nobody else. There's other trackers out there, and there's a great network we started here in Illinois, the Illinois Deer Trackers Network, that these guys are training their dogs. It's become pretty popular. It really has. Since I started 12 years ago, there was a handful. Now there's a bunch, but there is some legit people out there, and that Illinois Deer Trackers Network, it's on Facebook. Look that up. There's a map, an interactive map you can click on. It'll pull up trackers in your area. It gives a little bio of them, tells them their experience and whatnot. But get a hold of some of those guys ahead of season and talk to them. Get some heads up. Get some rapport going. Know these guys, but because we're really super busy, we can't be two places at once. I've explained that to a lot of guys before. We just can't. We can't physically do that.
Well, as we're rolling into this season, and I like to bring this up. You guys don't always like to talk about it, but I think it needs to be talked about. I shoot this deer. I call Slifers Bloodhound Service. How does this work? Is there a website with a price on this? And I love how you work, but how does this work for somebody who's never had to do this before and are going to call? And maybe this is different for other people. I don't know.
Sure.
But for Slifers Bloodhound Service, how does this work if I need you?
So my main way is basically through Facebook. I deal with Facebook. I don't do the Instagram or anything like that, but fairly decent following on there, and the phone number's on there as well. So usually, and we've been at this for 12 years, so the numbers got passed around a lot. But usually text is best. I always say if you want to try to get a hold of text is best. A lot of times I don't have cell signal that great. Text seem to go through versus a phone call. And if that works the best if you want to try to text me. But that's generally how it happens the most through social media as far as Facebook, and then a phone call. You just call.
Okay. Because I'm going to post this, as well on these numbers and stuff. And I know you'll be probably putting a lot out here as we're getting ready to go into the season too. So I think that I think how I want to close this is a couple of things. And I said this when we did the first show, and it's stuck with me since. And you hit on it, and you hit on it again today. And it really never hit me, before that first show we did, was about the wait, the time. I it's so critical, and you put it in such a good perspective. The first time and the second time we've talked about this is, you waited a whole season. You've waited 5 seasons. You've waited 4 seasons to get him mature. You've waited in a deer stand countless hours, and the moment of opportunity comes and we can't effing wait. We get down and we just can't wait. And how important we just need to just step back and realize you don't think about all that other waiting until you really sit back and reflect on the history with the animal or whatever. But the most important part of all of that is the moment after you shoot it. All that other's nothing if you don't find it. If you can't find it or you push it or whatever happens, all of that's null and void because you just couldn't let the last part happen.
To blow it. Yeah.
And I think that is some of the best advice. I mean, in any kind of hunting experience, it doesn't even have to be in white-tailed deer. I think in anything that you're hunting, if you're not 100% sure that animal was just smoked, just wait. Wait a little bit. And like you said, a dead deer is going nowhere. Nope. I mean, that is that's what needs to be put on your shirts. Dead deer go nowhere. You know what I mean? Because it's so true, though. It really is. And we lose that. We lose that as a hunter. We forget. We get so wrapped up that we just don't think about that. And it's probably one of the most important things. But I think I love the service, Ron, Gary. I do. I love the service, and I think it shows. And I don't know any other trackers. I just don't. I mean, you're the only two guys that I know. But I think the character is something. I mean, the amount of time that you guys put into this, the amount of time with the work, the love that you have for the animals that you're working with, your hounds, shows character. Shows the character of the people that you are.
Yeah.
And I think that character goes a long way in this world today. I don't think we focus enough on people's character and the people that they are. I think we worry too much about outside influences on shit that we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that the success you get is probably from him above, from your experiences and the friendships you make along the way.
Oh yeah.
And I think that all of that makes Slifers Bloodhound Service, I feel like, one of the better things as far as those services go around, because of the character and the people that are behind it.
I'll admit, there's no ego here. It's all about the dogs with us. We put our dogs first and foremost. If people don't know our names, I'm totally fine with that. If you know my dog's name, and it goes to show, back when Dio was live, we was eating a Cracker Barrel one night, and never will forget, the guy looks at me and says, "Aren't you Dio's dad?" I say, "Yes, I am." Didn't know my name, but knew the dog's name. And that's what it's about these dogs. They're doing most of the work, and I'm going to be the first to say, people will call and say, "You're the expert." It's like, no, I'm not. I say, I'm experienced, but I'm not the expert. We're learning things nowadays that we're constantly learning. Generally we got a lot of knowledge about the deer, but we've had deer blow us away in some of the things they can do.
Yep. Before I hit the stop button on this recording, I want to circle back one more time to Dio, because I feel like without Dio, who knows if this ever even exists, honestly.
Yeah.
And the amount of impact that dog has had on the community, surrounding communities in this area. I mean, the outpour of people that when you had the little, it was his, it was a recorded hunt. It was like, I don't know if it was his last hunt.
No.
But let's talk about that. I want to finish on Dio.
Okay.
I really do.
I appreciate it.
So, Dio passed. We learned that through this show, but let's just tell us the story on the back end of that. And that's how we're going to kind of finish.
So again, it was a bad ordeal, and I try to make something good out of the bad. And I thought I'd have this memorial fundraiser for the Jared Burke Foundation,
which I thought was beautiful.
Oh yeah. And I don't remember the dollar figure, but it was a pretty good amount. We got them there and stuff donated to them. But during that memorial, and it was the timing of things. We did a track down in Southern Illinois. Can't remember the name of the town where we was at though, but it was for a TV show called Final Draw. Corey, it was the guy's name. He calls me and says, "Hey, here's the deal. We've had a dog here on this track already. It's rained a crap load through the night. We're pushing 40 hours, I think, at that time. By the time we got there," he said, "Really want to find this deer so we can have this TV show. We got to have the TV show. We got to have the deer at the end." So I understand. He said, "We called other guys." They said, "Get old Slifer and Dio, Gary, get them down there. They'll probably find if it's dead." Again, a lot of things going against us. We show up down there 40 hours later. It had rained inch and a half, something like that. I don't remember the rainfall amount, but it rained quite a bit. Said the prayer again, set Dio off on that last point of blood, and let Gary and Dio do their thing. And it probably, how long do you think it took?
Probably 30 minutes.
Yeah, about 30 minutes, and ends up finding this deer, just elated, And so me and Corey have become friends over this ordeal and stuff. Met him. I think he's from North Carolina, I believe. But anyway, he calls me after he finds out Dio passed away. He says, "Hey man, I need a few details and some information." So that's fine. He wanted to know how to spell Gary's name correctly and my name and all that stuff. He said, "I'm going to make a show and we're going to name it Dio's Buck." He devoted a whole half-hour show to Dio. It's like, man, I just, so that night of that memorial at the fairgrounds, remember the fairgrounds had food, hog roast and stuff. We played that video of Dio's, but they named the show Dio's Buck, and it just very moving. I just couldn't believe that somebody would do that, and just unreal. And I know that Dio he was, a lot of people said he was legend at the time when he was alive. And I always hated that term. I'll accept the term now that, yeah, he's going to be talked about for a while. You know,
Absolutely.
You know, and I didn't realize the impact though, man, when he passed away, just the people that got a hold of me from states away. And, you know, we come out with these shirts at the time, right before he passed at the Decade of Dio. And we sold like 700 shirts, you know, and they went all over. I mean, it was crazy. You know, it just started out with that simple little bloodhound pup, and just, I mean, we did the best we could. We just doing what we're doing, you know?
Yeah. It's just amazing the impact that things like that have, you know? And that's why I think it's special. That's why that, to me, that, I mean, we brought Dio down and he come in when we did our show, and just it's just been a special ride with that dog.
Oh, yeah,
and the stories, and when Ron says he wants to write a book, I hope that he does, because between the stories him and Gary are going to have out there, I look forward to the hunting season, because I look forward. I'll sit in my tree stand and read the tracks that you guys are on, when you get time to get caught up. You know, because Ron does a good job. He'll narrate out a lot of the times the track and how it lays out and stuff. And to me, it's so interesting, because I use it as a study thing. Like I like to study, like, you know, like what that deer did for them people, and because deer are deer, you know,
and we'll make it entertaining and educational. I've always said that, you know, those posts aren't there to promote me or anything like that. They're there to educate the hunter, because I know I was a hunter myself for 26 years, 24, 25 years, but you're bored. You're going to be on your phone scrolling when there's no deer. You know, I've got a captive audience, you know, and I never will forget, this guy called me one time, cussing me out kind of in a jokingly way. And it's like, what the hell? He missed his target deer because he's reading one of my lengthy posts. You know, it's like, that is not on me. That's on you. But, you know, there again, I just know that captive audience and stuff, you know, and it works well. I just blessed by Dio. He was a blessing in a lot of ways, more than just what he did. There's definitely a book to be wrote, and a lot of stories.
I can't wait. Gary, Ronnie, I wish you guys a very safe, successful season this year coming in. I hope that every track is a good track. I hope that Jewel and whoever else gets to play along the way does well and stays healthy. Hope you guys stay healthy and safe out there, because I know that it's this calm before the storm is coming. So I wish the best for you guys. I wish that I do not have to call you. I hope I don't have to call you, but I know that if I do have to call somebody, I'm calling you guys.
Yeah, we'd make it worth your while. We'd have some fun, I guarantee you.
But I appreciate you guys coming back for the second time and doing this, and I look forward to seeing things that come out for the year, folks. I don't know if you guys have seen, I got the belt out today for today's show. We still got a little bit of time left. You've got to the end of September to get in on that competition. You get the belt to carry the belt for a year. Then you turn the belt back in. We'll do it again the next year. Just something fun to do. Just give somebody some bragging, running around town with their buddies and stuff. Some bragging rights there. So that's still an option. The merch store is up and running. You can find information on that on our website, but I'll also post stuff on Gary and Ron's Slifer Bloodhound stuff, and we'll be sharing all their information as they come. But guys, I thank you again, and everybody else. Your next show you'll get from me is probably while the hunting season's going on. So good luck, get ready, and hope everybody has a successful October 1st coming out. Thank you, guys.
Yep, not a problem. Thank you.